What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm Edward Lewis, publisher, BruinSportsport.com. This is Joey Kaufman, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register. We're here today at San Bernardino, where UCLA just wrapped up day number 10 and really kind of its last practice for the big scrimmage on Friday night. Before we get into kind of that scrimmage and what we want to see from that, let's get into kind of the news and notes from today. Jim Mora gave an injury update. So Takkarist McKinley suffered a head injury. They kept him out of practice today. Probably will keep him out of practice tomorrow, and I bet we won't see him for a week and a half and probably not till Virginia. So that's the update there. Everybody else looks like they're all coming back. Tavita Hau'olilo had a head injury, but Jim said he's asymptomatic today, so it looks like he'll be back next week. Connor McDermott, Jake Brendel, both could have probably gone, Jim Mora said, but they'll be back on Monday now. So everybody's getting healthy. They really haven't suffered any huge injuries leading up to the game one of the season, and other than Stephen Manfro, I think everybody's going to be healthy for Virginia. So, I mean, any takeaways from that?
You forgot Simon Goins. He's
right,
but just main takeaways is nobody's out long term. Most of these guys are going to be back before Virginia. No kind of catastrophic situation with any of them. I think that's the main thing you want. You hear across the country, and you're in the NFL, guys tear ACLs, big knee injuries where they're out for an extended period of time. That hasn't happened yet.
Jim Mora's press conference was kind of the other big note of the day. We really didn't get a whole lot of other players or other interesting notes from other press conferences. So Jim was kind of the guy today, and the big note from his press conference was talking about the Josh Rosen blow-up yesterday. Made national headlines, and everybody wants to hear about it. Everyone wants to talk about it. He basically told us today that it was all for show kind of deal.
Yes, he said. I think at one point he said he wanted to test them, and at that point you're kind of like, okay. But I think. And he wanted to correct a little bit of the national kind of narrative that developed throughout Rosen's recruitment. He had this reputation of being this arrogant, kind of entitled kid, and how is that going to work with Mora, who kind of demands toughness from his players? And yesterday's situation kind of makes people across the country, I think, raise eyebrows, or are they already starting to butt heads? And I think Mora clarified that and said, no, it's not the case. I'm tough on all of my players, blah, blah, blah. And he is, if you watch this camp. I mean, Josh Rosen is hardly the first guy Jim Mora's chewed out. I mean,
yeah.
So
yeah, he shoot out Chris Clark pretty good on the first day, and he shoot out a couple other guys, throughout this camp. So you're right. The other thing that I thought was interesting was he was saying on Rose Bowl game days, I'm the comforter, I'm the father figure kind of deal. But out here, I want to make it as uncomfortable for them as possible. So when they get to games, it's not going to be as difficult or anything like that.
Well, with practice, there's no opponent. So you're trying to set obstacles, I think, for players, something to overcome, something to try and push through. And on games, I mean, everybody's on the same side. So I think it's kind of he kind of clarified his philosophy a little bit, which I thought was interesting.
Jim also mentioned a couple freshmen. We asked him, who's standing out freshman-wise, and everybody wants to talk about them. It's been 2 weeks. We've had a couple practices now, 10 practices or 10 days of practices to evaluate guys. Give me some of the freshmen that popped to you. Jim Mora kind of said Fred Ulu-Perry. He said Rick Wade. He said Bolu will run from me. What has been your take on this class, and who's kind of jumped out to you so far in this freshman?
A couple guys. I'll start with Fred Ulu-Perry just because I think he struggled with the snaps last week a little bit, but he's a guy who's probably going to be the next Jake Brendel. Next year they're going to give him a shot to be that role, so he's an interesting guy to look out for. And he's low and he gets good leverage. Bolu is another guy who I think and more really gushed about him, and just he's a guy who gets that low center of gravity and his legs really kick. And he's a hard guy to bring down because he's low to the ground. He moves like this little cannonball. And he also has really good vision. He hits holes well. He's just a really nice running back. Seems to have a natural feel. And probably the guy I like the best is Steven Johnson because I feel like that's something this team doesn't have at the receiver position. They have a lot of bigger guys, possession guys who are sure-handed, but nobody you're going to flip to on a bubble screen. You're going to get out in space, and you're just going to turn on the burners and break off 35 yards. I think Steven Johnson maybe has the potential to kind of grow into that role. He seems to have that natural kind of quick burst, and that's something they need. With their offense, how many times you get the ball quickly to a guy in space, you want that.
Bo's having a camp that reminds me of Paul's first year here. He came in as an untouted 3-star. Nobody really expected a whole lot from him. That's kind of what Bo is. And then he kind of had flashes of greatness out here in his freshman year. I remember Paul running for 30, 40-yard gains, and us looking at our rosters like, who's that? And we're kind of doing the same thing here with Bolu. So, I'd expect him to redshirt. I know he's played well enough, but when you have Nate Starks and possibly Stephen Manfro and obviously Paul ahead of him, I don't know if you want to burn that year from him. But I'd expect him to have a similar career path to what Paul has had so far. He's kind of looking like that kind of same runner. I thought KLS really flashed today, had a couple nice sacks, had a couple nice pass rushing moves. He's not like the immediate 5-star impact player that you would expect from a guy who was ranked number 20 in the nation, but you could tell he's got a serious skill set. And the surprise, I think, of this freshman class has been Octo Spencer. He had another interception today, had a pick 6 yesterday. He's doing really well, so it's been a pretty good pretty good freshman group overall. Getting into top performers, let's wrap up the cover 2 recap. You had one guy, Paul Perkins. Tell me why.
We're not going to. I'm not really going out on a limb here, but we haven't mentioned him yet, and he hasn't got a ton of carries this camp because they've given Soso and Boldu a lot of looks, and I think they just want to acclimate them because outside of Nate Starks and Paul Perkins, there isn't a clear number 3, and they want to get those guys in. But whenever Paul Perkins has gotten carries, he's looked good. He's looked like the guy who led the Pac-12 in rushing last year, and he seems to have more of a burst at the second level than at least I remember. But he's got this really nice fluid running motion when he gets downfield and he gets going.
I thought Deion Hollins also was a top performer from today. The guy just runs around tackles. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. He gets in a 4-point stance, and he literally runs around guys. There's not a whole lot of pass rushing moves there. It's just I'm going to beat you off the ball, and that's the way it's going to be. I think he had 2 or 3 sacks today and gets in the backfield pretty quickly.
And when I know he has that quick first step, but he also keeps really low nicely. Like, he's not going to get off the line quickly and then go up, and then where the tackle's going to hit him high. He gets really low on tackles, which I think makes him tough because then it's hard for them to get down.
That'll wrap up our coverage from day number 10 out here in San Bernardino. As always, you can follow my coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Edward_Lewis. You can follow Joey's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Joey R. Kaufman. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.